Good afternoon. I'm here on behalf of the LVIS Program Committee. Our chair, Nancy Vermandois, Kathy Humphrey, and I want to welcome you to the second LTV program. Today's guest is James Crenshaw, principal of the Easthampton High School. I'll now turn the meeting over to Jen Tarbett, our president, and I'll be back at the end of the program with some member questions for Principal James. Thank you and enjoy.
Okay. I'm on. James, can you hear me?
How are you?
I'm good. So my question for you, James, is really, I'd like you to introduce yourself to the LVIS, many of whom probably don't know you, and give us a brief background. I know that you started in the South Bronx, correct?
Yes, I did. Wow, long time ago. First, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to the community in the LVIS. I very much appreciate it. In terms of my background, I've had a very interesting background. I first started in education back in 1999. I was teaching in the South Bronx, and life takes you on a whole bunch of different journeys. I spent some time as a social worker. I was very fortunate to end up becoming a social worker at Longwood High School, which is where I went to high school at, which was a great experience for me, and then ended up moving up to become an assistant principal there. From there, I became an assistant principal at Bayshore Middle School, and then became a principal at West Hampton Beach Learning Center, which is a BOSU school. And then that brought me back to here because I really have a passion for high school. But I'm very appreciative of the journey that I took, because it gave me a lot of vast experience that I find I end up using more than you would expect.
Great. How did you, was the move to Easthampton interesting? I mean, is it?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, there was a while back, I'd actually interviewed at Easthampton for an assistant principal position. And I didn't take it for different reasons. I actually thought the drive was too long at the time, but you get older, you learn some things. But I really love the community. I really love the administrative staff. I really love the interview committee. It was one of those things at the time, I was like, I really would like to replicate that, where I was currently working at the time. But it left a very strong impression in terms of a place that I could see myself going, when things worked out differently. So when the opening came, I jumped right on it because I just felt that it's a great community, and I had no idea. I mean, I had some sense of it, but it wasn't until working here that I really come to appreciate the community, the staff here. It's a really special place, and that's in COVID, which is like the worst case scenario, right?
Right.
Even with that, I'm
worse.
coming to work, and I love everything that's going on.
Great. All right. So talking about COVID, I know a lot of the kids would like more seat time. Is that going to happen pretty soon?
Yeah, we're doing that right now. Today, we're actually full remote for the purpose of preparing for more students coming back, which is going to start on March 15th. And there's a lot of information that kind of details our plan on the website, but the short version is that our seniors are going to be back 5 days a week. Our juniors are going to be back 5 days a week, and our freshmen and sophomore are going to have an increase. They're not going to be back in full, but they'll be back on a rotating basis, which will either be 4 days a week or 3 days a week, or, not to get too deep in the long, complicated plan, 15 days out of 20 is what it's going to end up being, which is a great improvement from 10 out of 20 that we have now. Students need to be back in school. It's very, very clear. And we're going to do everything we can to get them back and just get them to where they need to be.
That's great. What's the biggest challenge with COVID? The fact that some of the kids will need to come spend summer school, or you think?
The biggest challenge, that's, there's so many, I think the biggest challenge is that there are so many different challenges. And
Right.
the biggest part of it was that no one's done this before. I'm someone who likes, I don't reinvent the wheel. You want to look at data, find out what works, get some historical context for things. There was none of that, for COVID. So,
No.
Fortunately, I have a lot of good colleagues across the island who I reached out to get a sense of what different people were doing. And there's a great staff and administration here. So it was really a team effort. So I think the biggest challenge is that everything is new constantly, and there isn't a model to go off of, or any
Right.
data to base a decision off of, as there would be with other decisions that we typically make.
Good. My last question before I turn you over to Joyce, who's got questions from the membership. How's that bus depot coming?
It's coming. I'll be honest with you, there's certain things, I was talking to my assistant principal about, there's certain things that you'd be focused in on in a normal year that have kind of been pushed to the backseat a little bit in terms of every aspect of what you're thinking about. So there's something like the bus depot, you know, I know that that's been a thing. I really haven't put much thought, if I'm being honest.
I can understand that.
Yeah, there's been so many other interesting things going on, but at the same time, you know, and I've said this throughout, like, you know, with colleagues in different places, COVID exposes schools for things that were lacking beforehand. It's like they just amplify it. So what it's done for me is it's amplified things that, you know, I felt that we needed to work on possibly anyway in terms of directions that we need to go. It just kind of, you know, prioritized the need for doing it, especially, you know, when COVID's done, whatever that means, you know, there's still we're still coming out of a trauma and we have to deal with that and kind of plan, you know, for that appropriately. So that's kind of, you know, where my mind's going in a way, in a weird way. It's kind of a blessing in terms of, as a principal coming in, you don't want to make too many changes too quickly. But now we're in a situation where it's like some of those changes I would have wanted to do anyway, like they're going to have to come a little quicker. So kind of, and I think people are a little bit more understanding with that too.
Great. Thank you.
Thank
I'm going
you.
to turn you over to Joyce.
All right.
She's got a lot of questions.
You just mentioned, you know, during the COVID that things have been teased out that you didn't anticipate, or you find the holes that need to be plugged up or whatever. Can you elaborate a little bit, because I bet this is a big part of it, on the kinds of support services that students needed when they were not in school?
So, I mean, obviously the big one is dealing with remote instruction, and some students that works out great, for other students, you know, not as much. And then there's just the stress of being online as much. It's not as easy as you would think. So kind of balancing it out and finding the sweet spot for students. Plus, we're in a stressful world and people are cooped up in their house. So there's those mental health issues that you have to be very mindful of. Another difficult thing is for a 9th grader who's coming in, you know, for the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, our teachers, our guidance counselors, et cetera, they know those students. They've at least seen them at some point. For the 9th graders, you know, there was a full virtual 9th grader kind of came to our attention. I'm like, oh my God, no one's actually really seen her. You know, she's been full virtual, you know, the whole year. So it creates some interesting challenges that we have to plug up. We do meet as an administrative team and as a guidance counseling team on a weekly basis to kind of go over some of the tougher cases. But it is harder when we're not physically seeing the students as much. And, you know, just the modality makes it a little different. It's, you know, some things are tough to gauge in terms of that online piece and, you know, how difficult it is for students. Bottom line, we need students back, you know, so we can have them in front of us. That's the way teaching and instruction really needs to be delivered.
I would imagine your social work background is going to come in handy with your school social workers and what they might anticipate.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been something I've leaned on a lot, you know, in this whole process. And, you know, kind of on the other side of it, you know, when we ever get back to, and I'm going to use it in air quotes, normal, you know, a full classroom of students, it's not a return to normal. It's not a return to the way things were. We had students who went through a trauma and we have to deal with that. Even, you know, with students who are going to be coming back more, some of the conversations I've had with teachers is just because they're all back doesn't mean, you know, you go full steam ahead. Sometimes you have to check in, you know, with students. Some of these students have barely been in school. So you need to kind of be mindful of that in a way that you always needed to be. But this extent, you know, this makes it even more so given the situation.
Easthampton High School has some interesting programs. One of them is an award-winning program, the Virtual Enterprise Program.
Yes.
Also School to Work. Can you tell us a little bit about each one of those programs?
You're putting me on the spot right now. The Virtual Enterprise Program is done through our business department, and it's just like it sounds. It's actually really good, and in some ways, I think the virtual platform helps it out. But basically, the students are designing their own kind of mock business that they want to do. I think right now they have this really cool backpack thing that has like water and all kind of, you know, interesting things are in it. And it's just like it sounds. They're competing with other schools in terms of an actual business model. It's a really good pathway and like example of what a student would do if they wanted to start a business. It's really walking them through it. So it's an excellent program that we have. What was the other program that you asked
School
about?
to Work, LVIS actually will benefit by that program in a short time.
Yeah, so the School to Work program has been a little bit more difficult because of the COVID environment, because it's literally like it says, we'd have students who are going out and having a hands-on work experience. So we've tapered that a little bit because not as many places want us here, and we need to be, mindful of that. But it gives a great opportunity, for some of our students to have some hands-on, work experience, which at the end of the day, that's where, our students will be going at some point, whether college is there, in between or not. But so the School to Work program, it's wonderful. We have some really good staff, and the kids are absolutely adorable.
Great, great. Tell us a little bit about the plans for the new kitchen. We're wondering if the community is going to benefit by its existence.
That's a great question. So the new kitchen, they're building it right now. It's under construction. It'll be ready to go, by the beginning of next school year. Once again, it gives that real world experience. The students who will come out of it are going to they're going to have a certification. They'll be taking a certification test. So they're going to be really able to get a job and work, in that field when they're done with it. So that's something very exciting. It's a 2-year program. So it's not for someone who's going to be a senior next year. So, they need a full 2 years. So it's for our current sophomores. So they're having their junior and senior year. In terms of the plans specifically of, the community use of it, we'll see. We still have a lot of some of the details to be worked out, but it is a very exciting thing that has a lot of potential for growth.
It's probably someplace where a Board of Education might be involved, because the other interest was whether or not, if you knew whether there would be any more adult education at some point.
That I don't know.
Mhm.
That I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll defer on that one.
Okay, that's fine. And lastly, I wanted to ask you, it's a curiosity with people who drive by the school. Do you have solar panels now?
Yeah, not only do we, they're upstairs, and sometimes it sounds like the roof is crashing in because they're starting pretty much right over here. But yeah, those are being installed. They've been working on those for the last, I want to say, month or so. And it sounds sometimes like people are coming through the roof. Oh, I'm kidding. It can be loud because it's literally right over my
Lots of activity.
Yeah, lots of activity. But yeah, that's something that's can be that's being installed, which will be, in terms of power, it's a great savings for the district. So that's an exciting thing.
What else would you like us to know about you and your plans at the school?
In terms of the plans for the school, our overall plan is just to make sure that we are covering all of our students, making sure that they can reach their potential, and doing our best this year and then going forward, especially with making sure that we have the full student, in mind, and having programs that service them and that help them out. And for me, one of the biggest things is creating a system where you react to students in real time. So students having a difficulty either academically or social emotionally, that we have real-time intervention. You don't want to find out after the fact and then, okay, we have to, kind of come up with something. So there's some interesting ideas that we're working on for next year that I think are really going to expand that I'm pretty excited about, which needed even more, with COVID, because there's going to be some real skills gaps that our students have because of the delivery instruction. And if I'm being fair, this is definitely not an Easthampton thing. When I speak with colleagues, in different schools, I think we're doing really good when I use that as kind of the baseline comparison, like where are we at? But I think in the larger scheme, we need to make sure that we're also always constantly trying to do better. In terms of me, I think what's important for the community to know, whenever I'm dealing with the students, I almost look at them as if they're my children, like literally, like I want the best for my children, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they're taken care of, across the board as best as possible. So that's, because as a parent, right now I have 2 kids, who are in school. And so I wish that, for them. So in my head, I always had that in mind. I had that, parental lens at all times kind of peeking through.
That's great. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Jen, do you have anything else?
No, except to say thank you and good luck. And I know the kids like you. You're popular, so keep up the work.
Yeah, I mean, this is just such a great community. I'm so blessed to be part of it. The students are great. The teaching staff is wonderful. Like, I just can't speak enough, you know, from everyone, from the parents, like everyone just wants to help out. And there's such a great culture that I walked into here. And I'm just really proud to be part of it.
Well,
Great.
welcome.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Welcome.
And before we go, I have one announcement. Please, LVIS membership, join us again on April 12th, excuse me, when our Arbor Day program will feature tree chair Olivia Brooks and Garden Club President Julie Sakalariadis. I hope I said that right. They'll host the program with a guest, Jessica Schuler. She's the program coordinator for Westchester County Parks, Recreation, and Conservation, and formerly worked at the New York Botanical Gardens. Stay well, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.